Let's call the meeting to order. Almighty God, you have blessed us with memory, reason, and skill. Help us to use them wisely in the service of our town government. We ask this in thy holy name. Amen. To the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Anyone who wish to address the board in public forum? I think we'll take the two quotes first. There's no time on those. And I would need to have Matt address us on a couple other issues, probably. Sure. So we can do those first. These are quotes or proposals?
Proposals.
For,
They're for professional engineering services, preliminary engineering on the new meter and backflow preventer pits.
thank you.
It's just a preliminary engineering services for that. The documents that you requested, request qualifications, experience, background, and, and then an estimate of fee. So, as professional services are supposed to be solicited, it's supposed to be on a qualification basis with some consideration for cost.
I don't know where the pricing is.
It was asked to be in a separate sealed envelope.
Okay.
So I think the intent, and when, I think Liz helped you prepare these, the intent was review the entire document and see who you think is the best qualified, independent of actually opening the separate sealed envelope that has the cost. Because again, with your professional services, with your attorneys, your engineers, your architects, things like that, you should really be focused primarily on their qualifications.
So we should just note that we received the bids and who are they from here tonight?
Yeah, I think that would be, because you need time to review these.
Review the information.
So just an acknowledgement of who they were.
Okay, this one's from AES Northeast. And this is from, Linear Audio. Can you open this, or?
Doesn't matter, you're not
Doesn't
going to
really
review
matter,
it.
they should both go back to the water sewer committee, I would assume, to review, with Mickey. And,
Just the two.
so with that, anything you'd like to enlighten us upon?
Sure, well, just an update on a few of the items we're working on. We still have two open studies for the town. One is the Route 11 water and sewer, and as you know, we've kind of been on hold with advancing the engineering for that study, pending a commitment from the Village of Rouse's Point to sell water and at what specific price. I know we've had some correspondences back and forth between the town and the village. I've been involved with a review of a couple of those correspondences to try to establish that price and have an intermunicipal agreement, or at least at this point, a memorandum of understanding on that price and the term for it. And I think the latest input that I provided you in reviewing the draft was that the term of the agreement should be at least as long as what we would anticipate a loan being for that district construction. So the funding agencies that we would approach to help fund a water district on Route 11 would be EFC, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and USDA Rural Development. Those are the two agencies that are going to be the most likely funding candidates for that project. And the longest term loan they have is 38 years. So it was my recommendation to the town to request a 38-year term to the water supply agreement with the Village of Rouse's Point. The funding agency will require that. That will be a stipulation. Before they give you funding, they want to see that you have a commitment from your supplier, at least as long as you're going to owe them money for putting in that water district.
The term.
Yep, for the term of the loan. So that was the latest that went to them, and I just reviewed your correspondence tonight back from the village's attorney to your attorney that they questioned whether or not you should be contacting several other agencies at this point. It's a little premature for that. If they're insisted on it, we can contact them. They're really not going to have much input at this point. DEC, at the point that we get a district form, we've got a feasible project, they are going to have to approve a water supply permit for that district. They're gonna have to approve a permit that, that provides supply of water to it. And all they're gonna do is ask the question, do you have an intermunicipal agreement with your supplier? You're gonna hand them the paperwork, they're gonna check that box on their list of things you need, and they're gonna move on. So, yes, you're going to need them to see it, but that's quite a ways down the road from where we're at now. So I guess my point is, you know, we can respond back to the Village of Rouse's point. There's really no need in contacting all those other agencies at this point.
That's what I was gonna recommend. Could you write a letter stating that?
Sure.
And we'll submit that to our attorney and let him
Yep.
submit that back.
Yep.
Yeah, I know it's lawyer fees or jargon, but that's the level they wanna be at this point, so I think we should
Okay.
pursue that. At least keep a dialogue going
Mm-hmm.
at that level, so it doesn't become perceived that we are the ones holding this up. I'd like to see us respond back to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything on the West Service Road?
And on the West Service Road, again, you know, we met, it's been about 5 weeks ago now or so, and talked about the latest correspondence that I received from DOT that I think I shared with you, that said they have no idea when that consultant agreement is going to be signed. And that's the consultant agreement between DOT and their engineer to advance that project up on 87. So we had been on hold for about 12 months waiting for DOT to execute that contract with their consultant, so that their consultant can start talking with us about how the district and DOT can work together to make that water and sewer service happen.
Is that Clough Harbor? Is that the one that was the intended one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And they were having another group. They had another group as a sub-consultant that was actually gonna do the utilities.
Okay.
And they were here at the one meeting. It's another engineering firm in the Albany area. But, so, with that, and not to stall this project and the study any further, you know, we made the decision, well, let's proceed. If DOT comes into play, we'll layer them in later, but let's see if we can make this district work without them. So if we can make the numbers work without them, and then they come into the game, great, it'll make it all the better. But let's see, at this point, we can at least make it work without them. So we've been cranking on the numbers, changed the mapping of the district. We did also receive your correspondence that your attorney has determined that GSA cannot be forced into a district. And it's been the feedback, even that I've been involved with discussions with them, that they're not interested. I mean, if you want to ask them that question directly, I mean, it's been a few years since I was involved in a conversation with them. And they said, no, we're fine on our own, but if you want to ask that again one last time, wouldn't hurt, I guess. But, so they were cut out of the district, and that large vacant property that just sold was cut out of the district, and the East Service Road. So if there's no possibility of looping it with GSA's existing line, then it didn't look like it was gonna make sense to even include the East Service Road. Especially when you don't own that line, and the people that do own it don't wanna be a part of your district. So,
So does that mean it would be a dead-end line?
it would be a dead-end line. Yeah. So, it's definitely not ideal, but as long as you have enough users on that end, you know, it's still gonna see turnover. You know, what you don't wanna see is the last user on your line be a half a mile beyond the previous user, and it be a little single-family household unit, where there's basically 3,000 gallons of water storage in the water main, and they're only using 100 gallons a day. That's what you don't wanna see, because then they've got a 30-day residence time of water in that line. If you've got a big user on the end that's gonna be using 1,000, 2,000 gallons a day because they have 40, 50 employees, it's really not a problem. So, but we've been working actually in the last 5 weeks, working on those, changing the mapping, putting together the new numbers, and definitely by your next board meeting, perhaps even before that, I could work with John and Mike to review it from a preliminary standpoint before I bring it to the board again and start to talk about whether or not we can really make these districts fly. And I'll proceed with the Route 11, you know, with a couple assumptions, you know, the price that they've given us and that, you know, we can come to an agreement on the 38-year term. I didn't see anything in their attorney's correspondence about that, so
No,
is that not an issue?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at this time.
And the last project we're working on for the town is the Du Bois Road Pump Station. The pump station's been up and running since June. It's just been a bit of a challenge getting the contractor closed out on that. He only has a couple minor items left. He's got to wire in the modem again, and he's got to change the pressure relief valve out on the bridge. He had some issues going back on site this summer because he wasn't paid for quite a long period of time, but since he's been paid, we've been head on his back to get him out there. He's given us a commitment that he'd be out there this week to finish his work. The last component that was supposed to be the town's in-kind service on this was just the restoration, which is just simply just grading off the area around the pump station again and throwing some grass seed down. It doesn't have to be anything special, no landscaping, anything that, unless you want it to be that. But the grant required some local component. So we said, well, the local component can be the restoration. So that will need to be done before we can call rural development and schedule a final inspection with them. But they'll give you final sign off on the project. But, you know, as far as the proposals that you've requested for the 3 meter pits, you know, my little sales pitch is, and we're working on so much for the town, so many aspects of water and sewer. You know, it would make a lot of sense to be consistent with that service and hire the same engineer for that service. But you know, we have enough going on that we can start to look at how we can package these together and how these all are interrelated to pursue funding for the greater of all of them, rather than do a little bit here and find out on the next project, well, just we could apply perhaps some grant money to the other piece that we already did if we would only included it in this greater project.
The wet service road being mostly commercial, is that a funding challenge? Is it a?
It is from a lot of the rural water system approaches that we would typically have. You've got to be at least 51% residential for certain programs. But it does open up the door on other programs for business development. This regional economic development councils that were formed throughout New York State are tasked, obviously, to promote development in the North Country, well, throughout the state. But each region is tasked in how are you specifically in your region going to promote economic development. And they're looking for projects like that, projects that are going to save jobs or create jobs. A project like that's a great candidate for it. So, you know, they had certain focuses within each region, and this region had a list of 7 or 8 items. We've attended several of their conferences they've had to discuss their plan. And, you know, one of the keys was our connection with the Canadian border and, you know, the businesses that spin off from proximity to the border and bringing tourism down, things of that nature. So, and that's definitely a sales point for getting funding for that area. Those regions are all competing for $200 million that the state is going to issue. There's $1 billion in this program. 800 of it is programs that existed before. They were just put under the umbrella of this Regional Economic Development Council. There's another $200 million the governor threw in there as an incentive to these councils to compete for their region. There's going to be 4 awards of $40 million. And then all the other regions get the other $40 million split up. So all these regions are trying to come up with the best strategic plan that the governor's going to review, and then he's going to decide who gets the big $40 million payouts. And that money can be used at the council's discretion for projects that they feel meet their strategic plan. So if we have this project together and, you know, show how this will save and create jobs in this region, then it's something, if they win one of those $40 million prizes, they could help fund. So there's always some doors closing and some doors opening on these funding opportunities. It's just making sure you're there and in the game.
Gotta be ready.
Being ready.
We certainly thank you for your efforts in keeping us informed.
All right.
Okay. It is, a little after quarter after, we do roll the bids, we advertise for bids for,
Do you have any questions?
fuel oil for the trucks and propane for the building. Some companies may have bid on either one or both of them.
This is from Suburban Propane.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
We propose to sell propane for all customers' LP gas requirements at the initial per gallon price of $2.136. This is from the Clinton County Highway Department. Contract to supply and deliver diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, and heating oil. I've enclosed the original executed copy of the contract to supply and deliver diesel fuel, unleaded gasoline, and heating oil to the county of Clinton. This will remain in effect through December 31, 2011, and is renewable upon mutual agreement for additional 2-year term. It doesn't really say that. MX Petroleum Corporation agrees to renew the service contract. Anything about that, no? Doesn't really.
That's state contract prices, right? Okay.
It is from James C. Smith and Son. This is to inform you that the heating season of 2011-2012, we at James C. Smith and Son Incorporated will offer you as we have in the past. We have always charged you the Office of General Services state contract daily price. The day we deliver your product is the day we charge you their posted price. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. James Carlson.
So actually you have 2 bids that are exactly the same.
Correct. One propane? One propane, Griffin and then nothing.
So we'll buy it.
We're a supplier now, right?
Yep.
That's all you have, really?
That's it?
You know what we're paying now for propane?
No, that changed, I don't know.
contract price too? I mean, it varies daily.
That's good.
As well as the fuel. Well, I guess we'll just have to review them, because I don't know where to go with those.
Well, let's see what we're paying now.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if the locals are gonna be the same price as the county, I prefer to keep the business in the town if we could.
Agree.
Totally.
Okay, thank you, Joe. We'll move on. We need to approve the minutes of September 13th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You have your town clerk's monthly report. We thank Joe for that. Very informative. We have a letter from our attorney, Bill Tyrell, pertaining to basically that the United States government border crossing up here is not required to be in a district, and they are not taxed. And we cannot force them into a district nor tax them. We have your real property work schedule here in this building. They're here every Monday, not necessarily in the building. They could be in the building, but they're out and about doing assessments, but every Friday there is somebody in the building for anybody who wishes to see the assessor. Okay. We have Clinton County Treasurer's Office sent the check was $106,000, $757.25. It's the third quarter distribution of the sales tax from the county. And we are above projections. We have your monthly dog report from our dog control officer. Cindy was quite active. That time of the month is something. We had a letter, we just discussed this basically a few minutes ago, from the village of Rouse's Point to our attorney, requesting that we contact Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Health Department, and County Health Department to determine whether or not any of these entities would be involved in reviewing the proposal for the water district on Route 11. Get this information. We have a letter from North Country Workforce Investment Board. It's mostly pertaining to the Pfizer transition. Those people that are out of work and where they are, a lot of them have been employed in retraining. A lot of them at Clinton Community College, Plaster State, and Woolsey's, the trade schools. It's strictly information. A letter from the Attorney General's office pertaining to if any of your constituents has experienced any price gouging during the Hurricane Irene, either from the insurance claims or from contractors. To let the Attorney General office if I should know about them. The town of Moore sent us a letter pertaining to, it's been brought to our attention that the possibility of closing or downsizing Altona Correctional Facility. It just goes on to tell how useful they've been to the communities in the area. Certainly we would not like to see that happen. They do have work crews out helping in different localities, which certainly comes in handy for all municipalities. We have a note from the food shelf in Moore's acknowledging the check that we sent them last month for $200 for the food pantry. Thank you.
You may interject if that food shelf does cover this area as
Well, the food shelf covers the northern tier from Rouse's Point all the way to Ellenburg and I believe West Shazy and Altona. It's an extensive area. And we learned last month that around 150-some people in the town Champlain, between Champlain and Rouse's Point, use that food shelf. So it is well utilized. And we did support it. This is the first time we've done so, but it's a worthy cause. We have a letter from the village mayor, Russell's Point, pertaining to how we fund our code enforcement officer's salary. We have responded to that. The response you got right here. Certificate of achievements, we had 3 highway crew, Alan, Ben Huff, and Josh Castine, went to snowplow refresher course in last week or so ago. We have those on hand. Good, and we did some other training here last Thursday, I believe it was. We had 3 hours of safety training, which is required by our insurance carrier. And we're going forward with that probably at least on a quarterly basis to meet the requirements of the insurance carrier. JCO has a trick or treat coming up at the Freight Center in Plattsburgh. It's sponsored by the city of Plattsburgh, Channel 5 News, and Lattimore's Insurance Agency. Everybody wants to go. This next one is fairly interesting. JCO sent us a letter. It says, "Come and join us for a unique experience that will propel you into the world of poverty." It will be at Plattsburgh State Campus on November 7th from 6 to 9 in the evening. Everybody would like to go, either call in or sign up for that. Alan, highway updates on anything on the highway?
Got this sand about half screened. We have to quit this week because we had shoulders put on the road. We got that done today, so I'm gonna be back screening sand. I got a couple of other jobs we gotta do. But other than that, that's about it. That's all I got.
And we did pave 2 extra roads since our last meeting, I believe.
The shoulders I put on last couple of days. I got done for me.
Okay. One step forward.
Trying to get them on.
Tell me what you might be found something.
Yep, it's coming.
Could happen soon. Under new business, we all have a copy of the Champlain comprehensive plan. This is for that storm-ready thing that the fire department proposed to us last month. It's for your, it's how we handle emergencies. We do need to pass that if possible.
I'll let you know how we make out.
If I could have a motion to do so.
I make a motion that we pass the Town of Champlain Emergency Management Plan, as we all have a copy of it.
Okay.
Second that.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution for the budget, to amend the 2011 budget, an increase. Somebody would make that motion, probably read that off to us as they make the motion. No, anyways, we need to,
You mean this,
yes, we need to increase revenue.
Okay.
$980 to $29,313.92. Okay. And we're increasing expenditures on A522 and A1620.4. That's where it's going. If I could have a motion to move that money, budget increase.
I make a motion to pass the resolution to amend the 2011 budget as so read.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any concerns or questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I know of no one for the committee reports. I can't think of anything other than the county health department is requesting that we either put in a sanitizing system for our water or ultraviolet light. chlorination system or ultraviolet light. I did call 2 contractors to ask for quotes. They both have visited the facility, but they have not got back to us with a quote, so hopefully next month I would have that under the building committee. The requirement of the health department, whether we agree with it or not, it's gonna be a requirement. If it's within reason, we need to do it whether we like it or not, like I said.
Did we get anything on the landfill? Did they go in there this summer?
The water testing of the,
Yeah.
not that I know of.
We would be every summer, they get reports sometimes, we didn't get nothing this year.
Not to my knowledge. I do know there was a well or two up there that needed,
Yeah, I remember that, they gotta come around,
The
and have
guy-
to pick to point out the one that
the
needs
guy
to be
that
fixed.
normally does those testings, last spring, was let go. I don't know who's doing them now. The same person that used to do them for years is not doing them, I know that much, okay? He's no longer there. Who's doing them, I don't know, and how often. Some of them didn't need to be done every year. Some were annual, and some were biannual. I'm sure when they do, we'll get the bill. Okay?
I remember him sending us a report on that last year.
Yeah.
That was, we had one that was broke, I didn't know, I went in there, and I don't know which one is broke, I would've fixed it.
Well, we have, somewhere I've seen a map of all those well sites and casings. Mickey might have, I don't know. You don't have that?
Never seen that.
There is a map, I've seen it here, of all, there's several well casings up there, I can't tell you how many, several.
Yeah.
And there was one that was bent, but,
Well, one was sheared right off, we had fixed before, but there was one he claimed that was gone, but, it was broke, and where'd it go?
Do we have a phone number to contact somebody
Yes.
on that? We should do it now, because, as you just said, snow's gonna fly here.
Yeah.
We do have-
Martin and LaJudas was the engineer for that when they closed that, if I remember right. They probably have a copy of that map.
we have one here somewhere.
We do?
I know it's.
I've never looked for it, so I don't know.
I think the last time they sent us a letter, they sent us a picture of the map itself, and there was a little arrow or something, the one that was out or something.
I can make a phone call tomorrow, I can see if there's any testing, either, it could have already been done, we just haven't got the bill yet, or maybe they're not doing it this year, I don't know. I know the longer they go, since the landfill has been closed, the further the spacing is between testing. Okay. I will check on that. Julie, you have anything to?
Just this, thank you. This is, Alan received this. Dear Alan, we'd like to thank you and your crew for all your effort during the flooding on Point of Fair. You delivered sand and bags, helped residents get through the flooded roads, and promptly repaired road damage and cleared debris. We also appreciate the yellow center lines in our new reflective road signs. Sincerely, Carol and Frank Cochran.
Thank you. Okay, you have your post audit bills, we need to approve the monthly bills. They were on your desk tonight when you came in.
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly bills.
I'll second that motion.
Any questions on the monthly bills? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. We do need a executive session for discuss contractual issues. Yes,
Before you go to executive, that letter from the town of Morris regarding the Altona Correctional Facility, is that something where they were looking for you guys to send a letter to the state?
didn't state that.
It would make sense that we benefit from them, that we ought to, if we think that they're important, we ought to speak up
Good
as a
point.
town.
I don't, this town hasn't used them since I've been here, okay? I understand they were used either from there or Line Mountain several years ago. I know Moore's uses them, and Shazy may have used them too. I have no problem with that.
I think
We can get a letter off to them.
It's a good point. Regardless, I think it could state in there, in lieu of them not being around, it doesn't make them available.
Not here, not certainly not here.
Right.
Obviously. Can I ask what the revenue increase in expenditure was? Outside of the A1620.4, doesn't,
I believe that's moving the money for the fuel account. We ran, we ran short of fuel money. We used more fuel than we expected. The price was a little higher than we expected. Alan, am I correct on that?
Yeah, see, last year we budgeted fuel, I think it was $3 a gallon, and it averaged out at $3.22 for the year. So we were basically about the same amount of fuel, just that.
yeah.
We probably used
But we
as
use
much
extra
or
this
more.
year.
We could use a lot extra.
Yeah, so how do we increase our revenue then? What do we do?
Take it from another account.
Oh, so we didn't increase the revenue, we just,
No,
And
no.
then
it's
Shuffled
just-
it.
moved it from one account to another. That's all. It's all within the same budget.
yeah, it's in the,
The highway.
it's in the overall budget, but it just moved from one
Yes.
room to another.
We robbed Peter to pay Paul.
Borrowed from Peter.
We've done this several times at the end of the year. We've never done it in October, let's put it that way, okay? And certainly we used more fuel this year for the roads and stuff. And Alan said the price was higher too. We did a tremendous job. Some of that money may be coming back to us through FEMA. We have not got that money yet. We have applied for it. They tell us we're going to get it, but we haven't got it. When we get it, we'll be happy. We'll inform everybody that we got it, okay? It's one of those things you don't want to count until you get it,
All right.
okay? We do expect that before the end of the year, though, hopefully. Okay? And that would at least reimburse us for some of our expenses that we had. We're not making money on this deal.
Right.
Okay. If there is nothing else, I do need an executive session to discuss the contractual issue.
I make a motion, we go into executive session to discuss contractual issues.
I second that.
All in favor?
I
Opposed? Yes.
remind you, meeting change for next month.
Yeah, we should, we didn't do that.
Yes, we did.
We did do it?
Yeah, it's in the
That-
minutes.
Okay.
Yes, it is in-
It's in the minutes, but just a
It's,
reminder that
You know the exact date right now?
7th,
Yeah.
that we moved the,
The normal meeting date was election day. And we moved it a day early, am I correct?
Yes.
Day early.
Monday.
Yes.
same time, same station.
Rachel, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hang in here. We'll be right